So, I'm a Latina who grew up speaking Spanish at home with my family. My grandma came here from Mexico when she was 20, and I've been bilingual my whole life. Last month, in my Spanish literature class, we had to write this essay analyzing gender roles in Latin American poetry. I turned in my paper and got it back with a bunch of red marks all over it. My professor, Dr. Anderson, had circled every single time I wrote Latino or Latina and wrote Latinx above it. At the bottom, she wrote, "Please use inclusive language. See me after class." I was so confused because I literally am Latina. That's what we call ourselves. Dr. Anderson pulled me aside after class and said my language was outdated and potentially offensive. She told me that Latinx was the proper term now and that I needed to rewrite my entire essay using it. I tried explaining that actual Spanish-speaking people don't use that word. It doesn't even work in Spanish. You can't pronounce it properly. She cut me off and said language evolves and we need to be inclusive of non-binary folks. I told her I understand being inclusive, but you can't just change an entire language that millions of people speak. My own grandmother would have no idea what Latinx even means. Dr. Anderson got this look on her face like I was being deliberately difficult. She said, "Well, your grandmother's generation had problematic views on lots of things." That's when I started getting actually mad. Don't talk about my grandma like that. She lived through stuff you couldn't imagine. The word Latina isn't oppressing anyone. Dr. Anderson said if I wanted to pass her class, I needed to use academically appropriate terminology, which apparently meant erasing the actual Spanish language to make white academics feel progressive. I went home that night and talked to my mom about it. She laughed so hard she almost spit out her coffee. She said, "Mija, that woman is crazy. We're Latina. That's our language. Tell her to learn Spanish before she tries to change it." So the next class I brought in articles from actual Latin American writers and linguists explaining why Latinx doesn't work, how it's basically cultural imperialism dressed up as inclusivity, how the Royal Spanish Academy, which literally determines official Spanish rules, rejected it. I raised my hand during class discussion and asked Dr. Anderson if she spoke Spanish fluently. She got all defensive and said that wasn't relevant. I said it absolutely was relevant if she was going to tell native Spanish speakers how to use their own language. This girl, Madison, in the front row jumped in and said I was being insensitive to non-binary people. I told her I wasn't being insensitive. Spanish already has gender-neutral options like using Latin as an adjective or just saying people from Latin America. We don't need to import an unpronounceable English word. Another student, this guy Kevin, said I was being resistant to change. I looked right at him and said, "Are you Latino?" He said, "No." "Then maybe you should listen to people who actually speak Spanish before deciding what's best for our language." Dr. Anderson tried to shut down the discussion, but it was too late. Other Latino students started backing me up. This girl, Sophia, said her parents thought Latinx was ridiculous. Another guy, Carlos, said his whole family in Puerto Rico had never even heard the word. By the end of class, Dr. Anderson looked furious. She told me to meet her during office hours. When I got there, she had the department head with her. They said my behavior was disruptive and disrespectful. I said, "No, what's disrespectful is a non-speaker trying to police how Spanish speakers identify themselves." The department head asked if I had any formal complaints. I pulled out my phone and showed them the Facebook page for our university's Latino Student Union. They had posted about this exact issue last semester. 40 students had signed a letter asking professors to stop forcing them to use Latinx. The department head looked at Dr. Anderson and said, "Why wasn't I informed about this?" Turns out Dr. Anderson had ignored the whole thing. She had to issue an apology to the class and announced that students could use whatever term they felt comfortable with. I kept using Latina in all my papers and got an A in the class.